right, welcome to Nostr News version 3.
We're back.
The third edition.
Let's go.
So, obviously nothing has happened in Nostr in the past, since last Monday when you were...
I'm pretty sure JB55 asked all the devs, or fiatjaf asked all the devs to take a break from developing.
Yeah, I think everybody's been kind of sleeping on the job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For anybody who's new to Nostr and hearing this, it's a totally crazy thing to say because it's been a very active week and change.
Very.
Totally crazy, all of the stuff that's been happening. So we've got a pretty good agenda sketched out of stuff we want to cover. We've got a special guest callers in some of the guys developing Snort.social, and we're going to talk about Zaps, and we're going to talk about what else do we have on there? We got the China situation,
the new Umbrel,
the new Umbrel stuff, kind of thoughts around discovery, how to relay discovery and all that stuff. Or what else? Bounties, right?
Bounties are going to be huge.
Yep.
Maybe talking a little bit about the right corporate structures, if at all, for some of these companies.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of things.
And then you want to throw a little drama bomb in there.
Well, we got to keep it spicy, So towards the end, I'm not going to say too much on the Ordinal thing as it's a bit of a distraction, but there is a really cool project from Danny at DZ that's integrating Ordinals with Nostr. So I think it's worth mentioning.
Yep. Yeah. So we've got a good agenda. So, but before we kind of kick off the official stuff, just, I think last time we hung out was a week ago Monday,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been traveling. Kind of what was that all about?
Yeah, so I was gone last week into Costa Rica, and for anyone on Nostr, there's a lot of pura vida vibes down there, and I do have to say it was my first time ever in Costa Rica. I was in Nostr, and which is like a little kind of surf town, and man, it definitely meets the hype or exceeds the hype.
Uh-huh.
I was expecting, okay, Costa Rica, it's got a lot of biodiversity, some good beaches, but yeah, it's incredible. Like, what's interesting is this little town of Nostr is one of the few blue zones around the world. And these blue zones, I believe there's a couple in Japan, maybe one here in California, are areas where people, a disproportionate percentage of people live beyond 100 years old. And so there's a lot of interesting speculation about why that is. Probably something to do with family ties, perhaps something to do with what's, the purity of the water, minerals in the water, the purity of the food they're eating, the air, probably lifestyle. It's very laid back. Anyways, I was blown away by Nostr, and I'm even more excited, to go back now in March for Costa Rica, which I believe you're coming for as well.
Yeah, that's the plan. I still need to book. I've seen the thing. I've talked to my wife. I think she's kind of probably going to come join us.
Amazing.
But we haven't done any real planning yet. So I really need to. Was it easy to get? Do you fly through Miami, or you go direct from San Francisco, or how do you get there?
Yeah, so I haven't booked any flights yet, but I did.
But you just came back from there.
Well, so what's interesting is there's two different airports, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
where I was in Nostr, you would go from Liberia Airport, and it's actually I think part of the reason it's so beautiful and underdeveloped in a good way is because it's 2.5 hours of rocky terrain to get from the airport there. Where we're probably going to fly into, you could do that, go from Nostr, Liberia, to Bitcoin jungle, Ubita, where Costa Rica is. But that's a pretty long drive, I think 7+ hours. So I probably won't do that. What I'll probably do is fly into San Jose, which is the capital city, and a little bit closer, still 2.5 or 3 hours from Ubita, but a little bit easier. I did book a place for a week. Maybe I'll end up spending more. Apparently I've heard that there's some, magical quartz and crystals in some of the beach towns that I want to go to. And anyway, so I'll share with you where I booked, but I'd also be open, potentially if people are interested in getting a big spot or something down there. So I'm pretty stoked on it.
Cool. And so it sounds like you'll fly SFO to San Jose.
SFO to San Jose, but one interesting hack I need to check on, at least to Liberia. I met a guy down there who's an attorney that lives in SF, but serves 3 or 4 months a year there. Sounds like he's living a great life. And what he said is there is one direct, at least to Liberia, I have to check to San Jose, from SF every week, but it's on Saturday. So we'll probably plan around that direct.
I see. Cool. And you can just hop there on United or whoever.
Yeah, I think it's Alaskan actually.
Alaskan,
so
okay.
I actually flew this time. On the way back, I did American through Dallas, but on the way down, it was actually nice. I flew to LA in the morning, had a day in LA. Well, at least one meeting. And then I flew the overnight flight on Alaska and somehow fell asleep somehow.
All right.
Well, one other interesting thing I just want to point out on Costa Rica while we're on this that's fascinating. I didn't realize, it's such an interesting mix of, it feels kind of like, in some ways El Salvador or some other Central America, but in other ways it's crazy, crazy advanced, right? Like you can get free healthcare there. Apparently any American or anyone that goes down there, you can just go into a hospital and it's free for anything.
Wow.
So there's a lot of medical tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason apparently is they abolished the military, I think in like the late 40s or early 50s. And obviously they can only do that because they're kind of protected by the US, but it's been a really interesting kind of case study, which I had never heard of before. And now I want to read all the history of what happens if you basically take away like this giant budget that's being sunk into military stuff and then reinvest in infrastructure, healthcare, education. Obviously they need the support of the US to do that, but still I'd never heard of anyone doing that.
Right.
So it was cool.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds great. Like I've never been, so I can't wait to try it out.
Vámonos, way.
Cool. Well, I was going to tell you while you've been gone, a couple things that I've been up to. One is on Saturday, I had the idea that I wanted to just kind of do a fun thing. I've been noticing this Bitcoin bull has been just welcoming people by giving away sats, and I had made a video the other day about how to use Damus with Wallet of Satoshi to do Lightning. I made kind of a tutorial video for that. A lot of people like that, but there's so many questions around how does Lightning work and what is a Lightning address versus a Lightning invoice. When somebody's new to this, I mean, maybe those things seem easy and obvious to you because you're very experienced with it. But when somebody's new, there's all kinds of very reasonable questions like, do Lightning invoices expire? Do they only expire based on time? Or if somebody's already paid it, do they expire? Like, those are very reasonable questions. And so I figured I'm just going to start doing some stuff and trying that out. So I made Sats on Sats, which is Saturday night. I'm just giving away Sats. I gave away 21 who wants to issue 21 Sat invoices, and I'll just pay them all and make sure that everybody gets on board. And I ran into, plenty of problems, but I think plenty of things that help me realize what a person who's new to Lightning would need a little bit more education, a little bit more UX help with these things.
What were some of those big learnings or problems you ran into?
I mean, I think the idea of the addresses versus invoices was just not very clear to people who are getting new to this. And then the idea of expiration was not clear. And even I was checking with a Lightning expert friend.
I bet I know who that is.
Yeah, you know who that is. And he, I was like, hey, is this true that it works this way? And he said, yeah, that's how it works. It's only time expiration. But I think, as you get more advanced in these things and you just start to forget what it feels like to look at it with fresh eyes. Yeah. In most of the world has never touched this stuff.
Right.
And so I think it's important for, if we're excited about it and we want to help more people understand, I think it's important for us to see it with beginner's eyes, kind of fresh eyes again, so that you can realize that these things that we take for granted are just not that clear. And I'm learning a lot as I go along too. So,
This, by the way, is what I love about what you do, DK. Is like anytime DK has a question, he's like, "Screw it, I'm just gonna make a video about it." Well, I learn, and then everyone else gets the benefit, which is awesome. Like seriously, it's one of the great services for Nostr and Lightning. So,
yeah, thanks. I mean, it's helpful for me because I think you really learn something when you teach it. Yeah, you have to make a tutorial video. You have to clarify. Wait, does it work this way or that way? So that's been really good. So I did the Sats on Sats. That was really fun. A lot of people coming in. There were some surprising challenges in Wallet of Satoshi. There were like Lightning routes that just didn't seem to. It wasn't able to find a route for some reason.
Really?
I wasn't clear on why. I mean, I think I generally like the UX of Wallet of Satoshi, but I couldn't really explain why this Lightning route doesn't work. My understanding is there's like this inbound liquidity thing, and I think Wallet of Satoshi handles that mostly for you. But
it's possible. I mean, the last I read, River put out a report a couple of months ago where they looked at payment failure rate or payment success rate rather. And the early days it was like obviously horrible, less than half. On their nodes, the last they reported it was like 98, 99%, which is incredible. However, my guess with Wallet of Satoshi, without knowing any of this for fact, is they're just probably getting flooded right now. And so maybe they're having trouble balancing that liquidity because there're just too many users coming on too fast.
Yep. Yeah.
But by the way, like what percentage did you notice interesting trends? Was everyone using Wallet of Satoshi, all the newbies? Were there Moon, other wallets?
I had mostly, in the video I was demoing Wallet of Satoshi, and that was kind of what I shared and recommended just because I put together a way to do it. So I didn't see too many other ones. But when I was having trouble, I did use Moon to pay some of the invoices that had the root problem, and sometimes they worked later, and other people were chiming in and paying the invoices too. So, I wouldn't say I have like a full track of what went wrong, but the good news is a lot of people who came on had their first experience, and like a lot of eyes lit up, and people were like, "Wow, I can't believe how easy that was." So I think make some progress there, but there's a long road ahead to really keep making it better and simpler and easier for kind of new people to understand. And you don't have to understand all the nuance between, is it a custodial wallet, is it a non-custodial, do I have inbound liquidity, is this there's just a lot of questions that we might take for granted that are not super obvious why we need to understand them as a new user. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Hope we can simplify that.
Yeah, I want to join. I want to start giving some sats away.
Yeah, let's do it. Sats on sats. So that's one thing I've been up to. And then the other one I was going to mention is, I've sort of been here in Silicon Valley for several decades, and have a network of people who are, I'd say, very builder focused. They really want to figure out what can be built. And so I've been, kind of purple pilling people and trying, both kind of, engineers and big tech engineers and product managers, and also Silicon Valley VCs. So I think there's sort of like a certain set of people who are actually curious about Nostr and what can be built and what is this Lightning ecosystem all about. It's not necessarily the predominant view, but I think little by little, through one-on-one conversations and kind of asking questions and kind of thinking about it together, I find that people are pretty receptive to kind of exploring this idea in earnest. And one of the things that I found just through, and I've got a video that I'm going to publish, I think in the next, maybe it's a day or two out, but it's a video I did with a friend of mine who is, he was a big tech PM eng for many years. I think he was at Apple for 5 years. And he worked on, or maybe he was at Google, worked on Gmail for 5 years. I think he was at Apple and worked on messaging and photos within messaging, if I recall. But I found when I'm talking about the stuff that I think is interesting about Nostr, I'm naturally drawn to like the censorship resistant idea, right? Like that's kind of it's a new idea that we haven't really had a good tool to execute well. And I think we now do, at least the beginnings. But I think that's not necessarily a compelling way for me to share it with Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand like, why is this important? Why, is that going to really appeal to the mass market? So even if you can, understand in abstract why it should be important or would be important, or could be important, you don't feel it the way, some of these other ideas. The one that I did find really lands is when you talk about the product innovation that this kind of thing can enable.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so a specific example we landed on, I'm going to screen share this example. Have you seen these community notes features on Twitter?
No.
So Twitter has this feature that I think was just launched in December, if I recall correctly. And here's a tweet.
Okay.
And then there's a thing, readers added context they thought people might want to know. Okay. So this is somebody saying this is a scam. When schools were closed, blah, blah, blah. And then here's readers added context. School closures were because of this, right? So it kind of attaches commentary about additional context to help people understand, maybe an opposing view or an alternate interpretation of the content in the tweet. Now, that launched in December of 2022.
Right.
If we had an open client, open data network, we should have seen that kind of thing 10 years ago.
Right.
But it's because a centralized provider, no matter how smart they are, more smart people don't work for it than do. And so I think this kind of thing is actually a much more compelling way to explain this future to people who really want to build and want to invest in this future. Is it's about the amount of product innovation that it can unleash because you decouple data and clients.
Totally. And honestly, even though I do like the censorship resistant stuff, like I'm pretty hardcore Bitcoiner, obviously, but that excites me a lot more too, if I'm being very honest. Like, I think that just accelerating the rate of experimentation always leads to more cool stuff. And I think the way I think about it is it's just bringing back the internet, right? Like pure and simple. Like when we started with the internet, it was weird. And it was wonderful. And if you think about where all the cool businesses like Amazon started, because there's this now long tail of books,
Yep.
right? And you could also have a long tail of music or movies. It allows everyone to be more exploratory, more creative, create new genres, mix things up. It allows for what I believe is somewhat of a wholly universal force, which is evolution.
Yep.
Right. And then as the internet grew, as we've talked about, and you've explained eloquently in some of your essays, not by choice, but kind of by accident, in order to have a read-write user experience, right, that was easy, we had to centralize. And in centralizing, we gave up that the beauty of the long tail in a lot of ways. And so when I think about Nostr, like the simple idea is we're just bringing the internet back.
Yep.
We're just saying, okay, servers are also decentralized. That's it.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of what, I think so many of Silicon Valley's builders and entrepreneurs and VCs got excited probably 20, 30 years ago because they loved the weirdness and the long tail and the diversity of the internet. It's just that.
Yep, totally. It's like unoptimized internet. It's not the fully hyper optimized, kind of how much can you get out of algorithms that generate more revenue? You sort of make it more fun again, make it more open and greenfield and exploratory and weird.
It's messy, it's chaotic. That's what the universe is. That's what we like. We like some chaos.
If it's already understood and structured, it's kind of like, meh. All right, somebody else can handle that. Like that
sounds pretty boring.
It's not what I want to spend my time on.
Yeah.
But the weird is good. So speaking of innovation,
cool.
Our first topic is Zaps.
Oh baby, let's fucking go.
Which is exciting because I think it's for people who haven't seen it yet, Zaps are this concept, and I'm going to share a screen share where we can look at a couple things going on here. So Zaps is this concept, NIP 57, and it defines a thing called a lightning zap, which is a lightning payment on a note.
Right.
So if you think of like in the case of Nostr, a note is like a tweet for Twitter, but you can actually innovate quickly where you build the ability to pay at the note level. There's a lot of signal that flows through that. And there was a demo, I think, let's see if we've got, not there. I thought we had, I don't think I'll have it handy, but I think JB55 had tweeted a thing about a Zap that I think he published. I think it had 118,000 sats or something, about $40, I think he said. So, it's already kind of in play, but it's kind of happening between application developers. And we don't yet really know how the clients and the protocols interact. And so we were talking about this, and one of the things is we actually got connected to a couple people who are active in this ecosystem.
Sweet.
And so I wanted to bring up Kieran and Verbiricha, who are building Snort and have implemented Zaps.
Amazing.
So how are you guys doing?
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
guys.
Can you hear us
Doing good.
okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Nice
good.
to meet y'all.
Nice to meet
Nice to
you.
meet you too.
Good to meet you too. Yeah. So welcome. Thanks for. I know we were talking about this stuff, and you guys were kind of reaching out and telling us about some of the work you've been doing. So I just love to hear a little bit of like the starting with the Snort.social story, and then we can kind of get into the Zaps implementation, kind of how you thought about that. But I think my understanding is Snort is one of the leading or largest web clients today. Is that the right characterization?
Yeah. As far as I know, I mean, there's no way to know truly what's the most used client, but
Right.
yeah, it seems like a lot of people like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I know Artur.
And I guess the origin of
Sorry, guys. Go for it.
it's a bit laggy.
But yeah, go ahead,
It's
Kieran.
a
You were
little
going to
bit,
mention the origin.
Laggy. Yeah, you asked about the origin. I guess Snort was kind of born, over the Christmas holidays. I had like a week off, and I was trying out different Nostr clients, and some of them were not that great of an experience. And I'm not actually like a front end developer at all, but I was like, maybe I can give this a try and see if I can make something, better. So that's kind of where it came from. And then Jack started tweeting about it, and it kind of exploded from there, really.
Mm-hmm. And when you started working on it, were there other clients that just weren't super well there's something about it that you wanted to improve upon, or how do you think about sort of the main reason that people are sort of learning about it or curious about it?
Yeah, I mean, I tried out some of the existing ones. You know, like I actually would I was using Nostr rocks mainly at the time, but a lot of people liked Astral or some of the other clients, and I just didn't really. I didn't find them to be very fast, so that was kind of my first.
Yep.
My first goal with Snort was to basically make like a faster client, basically.
Right. And it sounds like if you kind of pick this up over the Christmas holidays, this isn't your full-time thing. Are you sort of spending more full-time on it these days since it's got a lot more stuff pulling you there, or sort of you have another regular thing that your main time?
No, I mean right now it is my full-time thing. Funny enough, like a week after I started the project, I got let go from Strike, so
Oh,
Well,
it's kind of my go-to thing now. So
awesome.
fortuitous in a weird way.
Yeah.
yeah,
I was also
I had
just
my
gonna-
calling.
I was just going to mention in terms of the usage, something I noticed is I know you're running a relay as well. And on Artur's site, Nostr.band, he's ranking sort of relay usage. And I want to say on both reads and writes, at least according to his count, you guys are already number 2 after only Damus. So I don't know if your metrics agree with that, but that would seem to suggest you guys are probably the most widely used web browser right now, or the web application right now.
Yeah, in terms of the relay, yeah, I'm running probably one of the bigger relays there, and it's been a real hassle actually. It's it's hard to keep it maintained, honestly, with so many people connecting to it all the time. But yeah,
Did
I
you
mean, I
initially
run
start the
oh, and
relay
it-
to support Snort.social client, or did you already have a relay going for working with other clients too?
yeah, I kind of launched the relay at the same time as the client, really. So they kind of initially the client would default to connecting to the Snort relay, but it doesn't work like that anymore.
And
It's
does
for all that load that we're handling.
right is most of the connectivity to your relay coming from Snort, or have other clients now also incorporated your relay?
Yeah, it's actually not the most popular client connection. It's actually Damus, I think.
Oh wow.
But it's a little bit hard to know though, because they don't send like what app they're connecting from, essentially. So
Oh, I see. There's no identification of which client is being used to pull
yeah.
nodes from a relay.
Do you know why that is? Are you sort of on the recommended relay list for Damus?
Yeah, I'm on the recommended list.
Okay.
And how do you think about I know there's been a lot of activity in relays recently too. And maybe I think Thursday, Friday, a lot of activity around both spam that was hitting stuff, so people got a lot more. Paid relays is becoming a bit more of a thing. And I think fiatjaf wrote some stuff around kind of relay types and kind of the goals that he would see them having. Do you are you sort of leaving yours as an open public relay for now, or are you thinking about doing any kind of paid or proof of work or closed modes for your relay?
Well, yeah, right. I want it to be public, but with additional features maybe for paid users, because we have this NIP5 service where you can buy the handle. So we're probably going to tie it to that service.
Cool.
Yeah. I also noticed, I was really excited. I was playing with Snort. It's a great user experience, by the way. Of all the web apps I've used, it's certainly one of the best, one of the fastest. You guys also have an interesting sort of onboarding user flow, something that DK has chatted a lot about. How did you decide? It looks like you have just like kind of a manual list of recommended Twitter followers. Are you looking to continue to upgrade the way people find topics or other people to follow? What have you learned from that experience of helping users go from zero to Nostr?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like that recommended list, it's just basically the top pub keys from my relay. So it's it is like a lot of the big popular accounts and some of the dev accounts, but yeah, discovery is hard, you know, like accounts are not really tagged in a certain way right now. So you kind of have to find them organically, you know. And, you know, we hope to eventually find a better way, like a discovery page, you know, with the new user flow that we deployed recently, it's intended to have, you know, more of a discovery page, but, you know, there's no way to discover, you know, groups or topics right now. So in the future, I'm sure we'll have something though.
Right. Have you noticed since you've
Also,
oh, go
I
ahead.
guess that as sorry, as search gets better, and I mean Arthur is pushing for a need for search, and as this discoverability gets better at the protocol level, we probably can make the onboarding experience much better and like allow you not only to bring like your contacts from Twitter or from other social networks, also to discover people that are talking about what you're interested in, regardless of the language they're using. So I think there's a lot of potential there once we index all the content properly and are able to find it more easily.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that you would take the discovery services that you're currently building and make them available for other clients? Or do you think you would like to adopt a discovery service that somebody else is building and focused on? Or how do you think about sort of, you know, maybe how more clients can have access to discovery?
Do you want to answer this, Kieran? Or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wouldn't encourage like building something that's, you know, specific to our platform, you know. Maybe, you know, like Alejandro said, there's a search nip, and there are people working on ways to, you know, categorize certain groups of people. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen that before with Twitter, you know, with um those Bitcoiner or shitcoiner websites, you know, that you can find circles of people. And I mean, I'm sure someone will index the content on Nostr, since it's all completely open.
Yep.
Did you guys, all of you guys, see? I forget. I don't know how you say his name. Is it Origindale or Origindile or
Yep.
however his name is? He put out a note that I thought was pretty interesting, and I think maybe this is based on one of your ideas as well. But basically, the idea that you could have a Nostr type, which is a note of like a packet of followers, and these are your recommended follows. And DK put out a note a couple of days ago with kind of his recommended follows that got some traction. It'd be really cool, for example, if anyone could go to your site or Snort or any of the different web clients or whatever clients and propose their own package, and then let people potentially with Zaps upvote which package they like and use that as sort of the plug and play discovery mechanism. Have you all thought about that at all? Did you see this proposal from Origindale?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, briefly. I didn't investigate too much, but yeah, I mean, there's many ways to do this. You know, as long as they're, I mean, I would be, you know, for a more kind of open approach where it's like a standard practice, you know, of how to discover new users, because you don't want to have one single platform kind of, you know, take charge and kind of isolate all of the users or all of the potential users.
Right. Yes, I think we're all.
And I think that this is something that perhaps you can already achieve with NIP 51 lists. So this allows you to essentially like to make lists of packages or event IDs. And at the moment, clients are using this for muting and blocking and these kind of features.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perhaps I mean you can bookmark stuff there, right? So you could have like a list of bookmarks that could be people, and this will be like your recommended contacts, right? And I mean I think that the primitives are there in the protocol to do something like Max described. It's just a matter of building it, but I think we can do it with do things like that with what we have today in Nostr.
Cool. So yeah, one of the exciting things that we wanted to kind of get your heads and thoughts on is Zaps. Obviously, it's like a new thing. I don't know actually when I first heard it talked about, but you know, I think the NIP is fairly recent as a Nostr specific thing. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit of like the evolution. My understanding is it was kind of first a client idea, and Snort is the first client I heard of that had anything related to Zaps in it. But I wonder if you could tell us sort of how you decided to do it and how you think about how it touches other clients and how it touches kind of the protocol.
Go ahead.
So yeah, for Zaps, so this was started by Will from Damus, and he started like experimenting with this and had like a draft PR for Damus, and yeah, I mean I was looking at it and thought it was really cool, and we started experimenting with it in Snort, and because I thought like having lightning payments as a reaction, right? This concept is really like from a UX UI point of view is super cool to think about it and to do things with it. So we implemented it and started playing with the early address that supported it at the time. Was Will's address. And yeah, I mean, we got so excited that started using it and gave some feedback. And the NIP came like almost after us implementing it, so to speak, in Snort, right? So it was great to to play with this idea, to also like give some feedback before writing a NIP for it. And for the moment, it's just a proposal, and we are playing with it. But I think people are really excited about it, and I think can enable a lot of interesting use cases for Nostr.
And maybe just taking a slight step back, if users aren't super familiar with what we're talking about with Zaps, I mean, the concept is, one of the core primitives of Nostr is that everything is a note. And so initially, JB55 had implemented in Damus lightning addresses where you could tip someone at the profile level, to their pub key and their associated lightning address. And then the idea of Zaps was born such that you could tip an individual note that a user or a pub key had published. And we've been talking a lot about how that's potentially very important for signal and discovery to be able to have value plus identity associated with a specific node. I think that's the area we've kind of approached it from. But I'm curious from you guys, one thing I noticed is I played with Zaps in Snort and then in Astral.Ninja. In Astral.Ninja, the way that I did it was they had the ability to kind of set and forget. I think 10 Satoshis maybe was the standard, at least that's what I was using. So it's like a very, very small micropayment. When I was playing with Snort last night and using it, you guys offer the option when I want to tip a note, you manually select, and I think that the increments are much larger, it's like 500,000, 10,000 sats, which also kind of changed my own behavior. It was interesting to kind of nudge me towards a bigger tip. So I'm just curious, why did you guys decide to allow users to choose the amount? Is that something you plan to keep? And have you noticed any interesting activity compared to something like Astral by encouraging users to make bigger tips?
I guess it's hard to know really what people are tipping because it's completely private, So, I mean, we didn't have any feedback specifically about the amounts, so I guess people are happy with the amounts. I don't know what to say about the amounts really. I guess the reason we choose those amounts is we obviously want to encourage people to use Lightning and to send and receive Lightning payments. So.
Well, just as a user, I mean, I'll give you my feedback, which is that I tipped more. And it was just like a subtle kind of push. Like, I was tipping 10 sats. I was like, oh, that's the default, whatever. I didn't think about it. But I did tip 500 sats for every post I liked last night. And it's probably better for the network. It's more expensive, but it's still pretty cheap. And honestly, probably gets a lot more, excitement for the user. Like, if you receive 500 sats than 10. So I liked it for what it's worth.
I'm curious how, when you're building Zaps and there's not yet a protocol definition, how do you think about how you build it? Like, do you have it live with the client side with the intention that later it could get protocolized, or are you working with JB55 or other client developers to try to decide on, like, should it live with a client should it live as a special protocol within a note? Should it eventually become, protocol standard? How do you think about, how does that kind of process of development work?
I guess the idea was kind of initially Will's. So I mean, we were just kind of excited to try it out and to, to implement it and to see it, because it's like this. It's really great signal indicator when people
Yeah.
are tipping sats, and because reactions are free. So
Yep.
there's a pure signal indicator there that we can build in, and if we can get clients to, show a much cleaner signal than reactions, then that would be great.
So if I zap, I go to Snort.social and I find a note that I like. I've got a Lightning wallet with value connected, maybe Albi extension or something. Then I can send 500 sats. And where does that 500 sats live? I assume it goes directly to the wallet of the receiver. But is there any of that metadata stored as part of Snort or part of a Nostr message?
So how this works is that we are able to know if a Lightning address supports Zaps, right? So when you are going to zap a Lightning address that supports this, and perhaps you are trying to zap a node or a profile, we can know that they support it. So we show a different copy there. And if you do this payment, what we will do is like take your Nostr pub key and the pub key you are trying to, or event ID you are trying to zap, and tell the LNUR server that we want them to publish the receipt of this payment to Nostr, right? And if these payments goes through, the server will publish this, and that's it. That's what a zap is. It's like a receipt that the LN address server pushes to Nostr, so clients can display like the amount that was paid and who paid it, right? So at the moment, if the LN URL provider supports zaps, it's zapped automatically in the client, but we plan to make that optional, right? Because perhaps you don't want that payment to be recorded on Nostr. You just want to make a payment. So that's how it works currently.
And according to this NIP draft, which of that data is going to be publicly available? So for example, in order to have this kind of value rank or signal, you would need to know that a specific note, and because I think I saw proof of payment or something like that, the specific note received X amount of total Satoshis. Is that going to be something that relays would be able to store, or is it always going to be, you think, optionally private? And if it were public, would it also have the public keys associated with the tip, or just the total
amount? Yeah, the Zap notes, they're the same as a regular Nostr event, so they have your pub key, so you know who's paying, and the receiver will have their pub key attached as well. So it's like the initial Zap note, it's kind of like a reply, I guess, to the note, or like a reaction. So you can see who posted it, and you can see the target event. So that's how they're tied together. But there are ways that you can kind of do this anonymously as well. So you could tip, privately, so people could see that they received like 100 sats, but your pub key would not be attached or whatever. So there are other ways to do zaps in a more kind of anonymous way. But right now it's kind of all public. So in the zap receipt you get the invoice, and then you get all of the pub keys associated. Like you get the event ID of the note that you're zapping, and you have the payer, and you have the payee. So you have kind of, it's fully public right now.
And do you show the list of zappers kind of maybe prioritized by sats amount in the Snort.social reactions UI? You're smiling.
Yeah, under each under each note, you get like a summary, and it's kind of shows the highest zapper first, and then it will say like 2 others or whatever. So you can kind of gamify it, and you can be like trying to get the first spot, by
Right.
zapping the most.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, like Zaps can have comments, right? So, I mean, you can reply in a Zap, or you can like zap a profile and post a message there, right? Because some clients perhaps are going to share that message,
Hmm.
and yes, kind of like a leaderboard. So you go to a profile and you check the Zaps, and you see it sorted. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Like,
Have you seen any anecdotes of people doing that yet? Like anyone like competing to be the top zapper?
I
in
mean,
some notes,
I mean, we
we
definitely have.
yeah, yeah, we have.
Cool. We've got 2 new contestants right here. We'll start zapping with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the sort of next steps?
So yeah, Zaps are for payments that you want to, I mean, that you want to make public, right? So I think it's important to always have the option to make a private payment. This is for payments you want to be public, and like for doing this kind of fun interactions, or for supporting your favorite content creators and things like that.
Do you think that the private use case, though, because I can see private at the profile level makes sense, but it might be nice if somebody wanted to say, hey, I really appreciate this particular thing you wrote, but I don't necessarily want to be associated with appreciating it. So is there a good way to do that? Or is that, because I know some of the private messaging DM stuff, leaks a lot of metadata that, it's not really, designed for that, I think, for the most part yet. So it seems like Zaps may run into that, like a private Zap concept may run into some of those same problems. Is that something you've been thinking about, or how would that fit in, do you think?
Yeah, I guess if you wanted to do like a totally private payment, I mean, you don't do a Zap, you just do like a regular Lightning payment.
Okay, so you
And
can't
those can
associate
usually
it with a
contain
note.
comments. So, I mean, you don't have to, associate it with a note. But there is a concept of like kind of DM style Zaps as well. Like I said, there's a private, there's semi-private, and there's like pseudonymous, and but they're not built yet. So
Mm-hmm.
You could also just create burner accounts, right? Like just a pub key to do it, an individual type.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And I'm curious about the, I've been cautious on web client usage because of some of the key pasting problems that Max has had.
Yeah, I got pwned a couple weeks ago. If you guys didn't know.
But I wanna figure out how's the best way to use Snort.social in a way that is as secure as possible. So I saw that you'd recommended, I think, that Albi is a good way to do it. Is that sort of the best advice right now, is to use your private keys through Albi and then use it to push to Snort through that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I personally use Albi, so yeah, I mean Albi's fine. There's also Nos2x, and there's some others, but I use Albi myself. What do you use, Alejandro?
I also use Albi, both in desktop and also on mobile with the Kiwi browser.
Hmm.
So yeah, I will recommend to do that as well.
Could you guys just
No need to paste the private key on.
Could you guys just explain to us a little bit, even when you're using a browser extension, and like I'm a huge fan of the Albi guys, worked with them a lot, trust them a lot, but for any of these browser extensions, could you explain are there still any risks? Because I'm very paranoid now after getting my first key stolen. I know I'm like 99% sure it was from pasting it directly into Enigma, which was obviously really dumb. But are there any risk from using a browser extension at all, or you feel like it's like pretty secure at this point?
I mean, there's always a risk. Like nothing is bulletproof. I guess the best you could do is delegated signing, but there's not really much support for that right now.
We can ask the Albi team for delegated signing. That'd be awesome.
And I think there's a NIP for supporting that, right, within Nostr. Because I think there's some.
Oh, that was the Minds one, where the Minds social network can sign on your behalf.
Yeah, and you don't have to give them your main private key, if I understand right. Kieran, did you want to mention?
Yeah, Yeah, so there's like I mean you can have like hardware wallets that store your kind of your master private key, and then you can create keys per client or something like that. But then whenever you post, you know, from those secondary keys, the delegated keys, it will still look like it's from your master key. Like that's the purpose of delegation. So you could like delegate a key for every single client, and then you're not really revealing your your real identity or your real private key.
But no one, as far as you know, has support for that just yet.
Well, on Snort we support showing events which are signed with a delegated key. So the seed signer guys, they're building like a support into their hardware wallet, which will allow you to basically sign a delegated key, and then you can use that on clients. But there's no clients that support delegated keys yet that I know of.
Cool. And given that you're kind of on the web side of things, I wonder, question I've wondered a lot is what's the state of the world with progressive web apps? And is that kind of, how do you think about sort of packaging Snort to almost feel like a mobile app, but maybe contacted through the web?
At the moment, like progressive web app installation is something that you can already do. Are you asking if we plan to like package this and publish it to like the App Store or things like that?
Well, I was just thinking that we've seen things for example I think we saw Damus got taken down in China because of compliance. Apple had to comply with Chinese law, I assume, is what was causing that. But the web is generally a much more open place where you could imagine people have a expectation of a mobile-like experience. So they may not be thinking, oh, I'm going to go visit a website, but they're thinking I want to use the Snort.social app, right? Even if technically it's just a website running it. But I could imagine that there's some sort of messaging you might offer to a new user to say like save this on your home screen, even though it's just a web view. And I wonder, like, does it feel good to people in that mobile web context? Does it feel like a mobile app, or is there some work that you would think about doing to make it feel more like a native app, even though it's really functionally a website?
So yeah, I think that encouraging people that are mobile to install it is like a great idea, and that's how I use it as well, right? As a progressive web app. And of course, I think like there are some areas that we have to improve. Kieran is helping us with the design, and I mean, he hasn't even designed the whole app, right? So some parts, like the DM parts and so on, we still need to polish them a bit. But I use it on mobile most of the time, and for me, like it feels super snappy. It looks good. I mean, it's the styles look good in mobile, in my opinion, at the moment, and so far it feels really well. I mean, I haven't felt the need to switch clients on mobile, right? To use like a native client or something like that. I still have them because I think I like to test other clients and use them, but feels really good on mobile in my experience.
Yeah, I'm also using it as a PWA. So I mean, if you go to the site on your phone, it will suggest that you add it to your home screen. So
good.
I guess we already have the PWA side down, and I use it as a PWA as well. So and it works great. So I haven't had any immediate need or want to kind of publish it as an app on the App Store, but
Right.
maybe someday. I mean, there's a lot of people will instinctively kind of look for apps,
Yep.
So maybe there is like that, that avenue to get more people onto Snort.
Anecdotally, you guys are probably, if not number two, one of the biggest clients out there after maybe Damus. Where are you noticing in this last big surge? I know you don't know everything, but anecdotally, where are users coming from? Have you noticed any interesting trends? Are they coming from seeing, leaders like Jack and Snowden? Are they coming from hearing their friends talk about another client like Damus and then exploring? Like, how are people coming through the funnel and finding you at Snort?
That's a good question. I mean, like a couple of days ago, I mean, maybe it was last week or, well, there was like a huge boom from China. I mean, I don't know where it originated from, but unfortunately, Snort got blocked in China like a few days ago, like yesterday, so they won't be on the site anymore. Um, but in terms of getting people, I mean, I see metrics on, on the site from countries, and they kind of just spike out of nowhere. I don't really know. Like you get like some influencer who posts about it, or talks about it, and you get like a spike in one specific country. Like on one day we had some huge spike in Indonesia, and before that there was almost no usage. So it's very organic right now, but it seems like a lot of people are trying to look at it from the kind of Web3 kind of lens, even though we're not really advertising it to be kind of an NFT platform
Right.
or anything like that. So I don't know. People are trying to find their next scam, I guess.
Tell us how you really feel.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people talking about NFTs, and there was like a Damus token, and
Oh,
there was
yeah.
like another Nostr token that got
A
rug pulled
fake
like
thing.
today. So
It was a scam token. Yeah.
Oh,
Somebody
shit.
just co-opting the brand. Yeah.
God, these people are worse, man.
I wonder.
I mean, like 90% of the spam on global was like these Telegram groups
Right.
spamming, Damus token, and it's just like
Right.
they're just scammers basically, that they're trying to make it appear to be the next big thing, but they don't really care, I guess.
I wonder, sort of when, and I don't want to keep you too long because I know you guys are further ahead time zone. We're sort of enjoying midday right now, but you guys are kind of late at night, so I don't want to keep you past your bedtime. But I did want to kind of understand a little bit about kind of the future as you see it, and what are the things that you're excited about for kind of the future of Snort, the future of Zaps, or just kind of the future of the Nostr ecosystem.
And Alejandro is always telling me about his plans, so I guess he can answer this question.
Well, I mean, I will. I mean, of course, I would really like to explore more features on top of Zaps. Like, I think it's really exciting what we can do with it. Like for crowdfunding, also for adding bounties, because Snort is an open source project, right? So when I learned about Zaps, I had this idea. Okay, we can essentially like turn our GitHub issues into notes, and people can zap them, and we can have bounties, and whoever, like, you can see in Nostr how high the bounty is, and the people that the person that implements it can claim it, and we can, I mean, this official Snort account can zap that person and say, okay, zap publicly and pay them and say, okay, here is your bounty, and it's all recorded on Nostr. So I'm looking forward to do like to build on top of Zaps, and perhaps even build like some Nostr experience that are all paid. For instance, I don't know. You can go. Your imagination can go wild with this thing. So yeah, looking forward to build on top of this Lightning and Nostr. So excited about it.
That's great. And I think I saw about a dozen or more contributors to the Snort.social project on GitHub. Is that dozen or so people, are they all pretty actively involved right now? And sort of, are you looking for more people to contribute in different ways, or how do you think about sort of the future of the project?
Yeah, I guess I'm the one that's kind of full-time working on Snort, so the rest all have, jobs, full-time jobs. So, but PRs are always welcome, and we have many things to build. So if anyone out there wants to work on Nostr clients or anything like that, we have a system already in place that will automatically pay people donations and contributors. So every day there's like an automated payment for any of the contributors who are actively working on Snort. So
Oh, great.
I mean, there's a way for people to earn some sats as well if they want to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
As you guys
Yep.
think, maybe
And we do like daily payouts.
cool. As you guys think, maybe a year out, you know, and I was just texting DK last night that I thought this whole Nostr thing was going to go very fast. You know, about 3 weeks ago, I published my sort of Nostr investment thesis, and I was like, oh, this thing's going to take Lightning mainstream. It's going to happen a lot faster than people realize. You know, maybe in a year. And now I see this just exploding every day almost, right? Like more has happened in 3 weeks than I thought was going to happen in 3 months. So I'm just, even I, like, and I'm usually, you know, people think I'm crazy with how bullish I am on these kinds of things, but I've been blown away. You know, 1 year out, do you guys have any crazy, I don't know, ideas or predictions, like how many people you think are using Nostr, what it's done for the Bitcoin Lightning network, and just any things you're really excited or crazy ideas you're excited to see, you know, kind of manifest in reality?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, it's really hard to predict where this is all where all this is going. I think many people are going to try like different things, different experiences. Clients are going to, I mean, perhaps now they look mostly the same, but they're probably going to diverge. And yeah, I'm not. I mean, I don't know where this is going, but for me, what has me excited is like yeah, mixing Lightning and Nostr and making an experience that like has like a really easy and really quick like payments built in and what the use case that I'm super excited about is like yeah, supporting um, people that create content that I consume without like consuming ads, just supporting them directly and allowing them like to stay independent and like get funded by their audience. That is one of the like branches of Nostr I'm most excited about, and I would like to see work in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I guess my prediction with Nostr is like, of course, yeah. I mean, I think everyone should just ditch Twitter. I mean, I'm even considering just like closing my Twitter account because every time I look at Twitter, it's like the same feed over and over again. It's getting worse and worse. Like if I try to compare it to the quality of that you get on Nostr, it's just like pure signal compared to Twitter. But where do I see it going? I mean, yeah, I think it's like social is just like that immediate use case that people jump to because it's like it's built for for censorship resistance and all of this because that's where people get censored the most. You know, when they're trying to communicate with the world or with their people, their followers. So that's all the obvious use case. But I mean, there's so many things you can build on Nostr. It doesn't have to be social platforms at all. So there's so many possibilities.
Great. Well, we look forward to kind of seeing this evolution. We want to keep an eye on what you guys are doing and how Zaps are progressing. And want to say thanks for reaching out and thanks for joining us for the call. This is fun to get to hear from you.
Thank you.
We've got a big agenda of stuff that we're going to cover, so we'll still hang around. But I think it's late at night, so we'll let you guys get to your evenings.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks
Nice
for
talking
having
to you
us.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
All
All
right.
right. That was awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
It was really cool. We covered a lot of ground there.
We did, yeah. I think we actually started addressing a lot of the topics that we had on our list anyway. So good that those came up organically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, let's see, as I'm looking through kind of our agenda, we've got the paid relays concept. Did you look through there was a post that fiatjaf had made,
I saw
kind of around discovery ideas. Was there anything from there that stood out that you wanted to address?
Not
Pull it up here.
specifically. I mean, I read through it, relatively quickly. Just that there's obviously different ways to find your friends and the relays those friends are on. And I guess my biggest takeaway from his piece was just that there's no best practice yet because this is such a decentralized system. Like, you may know the NIP5 of a friend, you may know their pub key, you may find someone on one relay and, maybe that a note has that relay on it. So I think it was just interesting to note that at least as of today, there's no one best practice and kind of like a hodgepodge of hackish ways to find other people on Nostr.
Right.
What about
Yeah.
you?
Here's the post from fiatjaf where he talks about the simple classification of relays, and he sort of categorizes as three: so spammy relays, safe relays, and closed relays. So I think those are just like interesting. I think spammy relays we started to see with. We started to see kind of public open relays that get a lot of spam. Both, I think there's a lot of porn showed up. There's a lot of, these kind of Telegram,
Damus token
scams. So I think when, over time, probably, more and more relays are going to have to move towards some sort of models that have a barrier to entry. So it could be a proof of work on a pub key, could be requiring a fee. I think whitelisting is a common technique too that people are going to start using. So you only want to have it for yourself, or you want to have it just for you and your friends. So a bunch of different.
NIP5.
Yeah, NIP5. Like maybe Kieran wants to host all the Stacker News accounts, and he wants to relay all that. It talks a little bit here about how to follow and find posts from a given profile, which I think is what you were addressing. And then there was how you bump into new people. I thought he had addressed a little bit. I'm trying to see where that is. Because the core of a basic app is home feed, profile view, and a replies view. But the replies view starts to touch on discovery of people.
Right.
And that's one that, sort of, I'd say people have generally shied away from, because how do you decide which replies to show? And do you prioritize certain people over others? And that has like a discovery touch point to it, which has taste and potential censorship implications. And I think people like to try to draw lines around where they're gonna, like what they're gonna implement and how it might impact. Discovery almost always has taste, and so you have to sort of decide where you're gonna stake your ground on your willingness to participate in discovery or not.
Yeah, and that's why we talked about it with the guys, but I really like that note from Rijendel, or however you say his name, and this idea that I think the core concept of Bitcoin and Lightning and Nostr, for all of them, is just free markets, right? And so, or free, competition, free evolution. How about that? And so I really like this idea that if you let everyone kind of curate their own list, and then ideally each of those lists is a note, maybe it's a new NIP type, maybe it's not, but then you also let people zap those notes, and you can build, as Artur calls it, the trust rank for each of those. Then you can create a marketplace and a ranking of the discovery feeds or algos. And I think that's the best idea I've heard.
Yeah. I pulled up the note. So this is streaming now, the note. So this is Rijendale. I know of him as his bio says Pi Maximalist.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So if I missed the name pronunciation right, I hopefully got the bio right. But he's talking about a Nostr micro app. And so, I think he's addressing this idea and saying he's hoping that somebody would build this, and he kind of made an app proposal for what that would look like. Do you understand exactly how is this meant to plug into other apps, or just like, is this a hub where you would go to do that kind of discovery, or what? I think high level concept, this seems interesting. I don't think I've digested exactly how it fits in.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I assume you could have either feed. You could just like go to it as like whatever, a standalone app, or more likely offer it via API to your client. Seems like the best to me.
So you're saying you log in via a NIP07 browser, like Nostr.2x or Albi,
right?
And then pick a subset of people, which is a bundle, and someone else can come to the micro app. So coming to a micro app means what? Like you're visiting a website, or
yeah. I mean, I think the simplest idea would literally just be like like a website with like a list, like a leaderboard, kind of on Stacker News or on Wavelake or Fountain, of like, here are the different bundles, and then you can tip or upvote the bundles you like.
Right, but presumably this is different than what we're seeing on like Nostr.directory, or is that kind of a early prototype of this concept?
I think so. My understanding is, Nostr.directory is very focused on linking old world identities, so Twitter or GitHub account, to new Nostr pub keys. And so I don't think there's a lot of, at least that I've seen recently, sort of taste making natively in Nostr, taste making being people upvoting the packages. Here, I think, again, and it would be great to get him on the show at some point, but not to speak for him, but my understanding was actually something closer to what you've been advocating for, which is old world identity is great, and it's nice to have that as an option to bridge, but it's a lot easier to onboard someone if you can just start from scratch and do everything natively in Nostr. And so I kind of think of his proposal as a way to bootstrap yourself from zero to like good followers for different subjects, all in Nostr and not needing to go back to the old world. And you could also, something you've said before as well, have them categorized, right?
Right.
So you could have like in the micro app or on the website, if I'm into various topics, here are the different packages I should follow.
Yeah.
If I'm into Bitcoin, if I'm into football, soccer,
Yeah.
if I'm into whatever, cryptography,
Nostrica.
world history, surfing, hip hop, subgenres within hip hop, all that good stuff.
Yep. So we can curate all of those, and hopefully make it easier for people and relays. For people to get discovered. And one of the reasons I'm excited about this is I think new people who come on who don't get connected are going to churn out and have a bad experience. But new people who come on who get connected to the activity are going to have a wonderful experience, as we've seen, like super high signal. So I want to figure out, how do we help newcomers see what that looks like and feels like? And I ran into it acutely because I was making the video that I wanted to explain how to integrate Damus with Wallet of Satoshi. So I wanted to start from a fresh account. And when you come on, you've been playing with it long enough that you probably already have a great feed, and so you don't even think about it. But almost nobody in the world has used any of this stuff yet. And if everybody comes on and just sees like an empty feed or a feed with like one app account, it's just not going to be clear how to engage with it. Totally. So I wrote a note the other day to try to tag some accounts that I thought would help, just a small way to sort of get your initial discovery going, so you can find a couple accounts that are active and hopefully begin your journey. But, I think there's a lot more solutions we can take.
You should hook up with whoever builds Original's app, and you could have one of the first packs. Something else I wanted to say on that is I don't think it's just, limited to who you should follow on Nostr.
Right.
Like I think one of the super applications on Nostr in general is going to be markets for human curation for anything, right? Like, so I'm thinking, beyond just who I want to follow, like the hip hop example, I was thinking like, the other night, my girlfriend sent me a new artist that I had never heard before, and it was so good. I got so excited. Or like, there's certain people, like, often my dad will send me, something very cool, on the music front that I would have never found from like the Spotify or YouTube algos. And so when you find someone that has good taste, it's really nice to be able to constantly, follow what they're curating, pay them for that curation, or at least show the support upvote so you can get the better signal so other people can find it. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of where this web is going. Now, one question I have for you, and I'm curious how you think about this. If you look at how the internet went through indexing, right? First it was Yahoo directories, and then we eventually got Google and sort of algorithmic search. In the future of Nostr, is it just going to be like the beauty of this is instead of just one centralized corporation doing the directory, you have an infinite number of people competing to do different directories. So is it going to be just like the curation of the future is human done? Humans are always better than the algos, and there's just marketplaces and niches for different curation? Or is it going to be, we're still going to end up in algos, but the algos are fed by the human curated list, something in between? Or where do you all think all this ends?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Great questions. It's hard to see exactly how that plays out. I would guess that, in early days, we're going to have, focused and narrow enough kind of really active user bases around topics that, algorithms are sort of overkill compared to just, good human curation. But if that works at a small scale, then the human curation probably will continue as like new topics come on and new curation kind of bundles get formed. So I think it's going to be human for, I would guess, some reasonable period before you can do interesting algorithmic stuff. But at some scale, the human curation has sort of given it enough of a seed of training that you can now find, collaborative filters of people that are in multiple topics and other topics you want to extend to. And so it seems like algorithmic is the obvious future for this. Like you'd want that, but you can also choose your algorithm. Like, which algorithm of discovery do you want? Do you want, things that kind of are more exploit topics that you care about, or things that are more explore and bridge to new topics that you don't yet know about but might be interested in? And I think what's really amazing about an open system that we've never really experienced before is you could try dozens of those. You could try one and see if it comes up with something you like, and then be like, I'm in the mood for stuff I'm familiar with, so I'm going to just be more of the exploit mode. Then you'd be like, you know what? I need to kind of freshen up. I want to kind of explore a little bit more. And you go into explore mode, you just swap in a new algorithm and visit a new website or a new micro app or a new surface within a client that you already use, and start kind of exploring and kind of use it as a launching off point. So I think it's early days. It's going to be a lot of human curation work, but I think that seed of human curation begets activity, begets more topics and people interested, which eventually gets kind of, gets algorithms. And hopefully we can do it in a way where that infrastructure has swappable algorithms and pluggable and transparent, so everybody kind of can see what's going on.
I do feel two big things come to mind for me. One is that, AI in general and algorithms, I think at its best, are going to augment human intelligence. So somehow it's going to be human curated lists feed into algorithms together. You have like a nice feedback back loop between the human and the AI. So that's my like kind of best base case guess. However, I totally see a world happening here where, maybe you start with human curated, it starts to go algo, but as everything in the world starts to go algo, and Nostr is kind of like the bastion of freedom, the counterculture, at least, unless it becomes mainstream, but at least the counterculture, I think will probably always be human only. Like, fuck the algos. Like, we here in this corner, we only, go by humans.
Right.
Human intuition. And maybe the pendulum will just swing back and forth on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem like one of those things. It's like a bit of a tension that it is. Yeah. A little bit of that pendulum. I agree. I think it's good though that in the new pendulum, even when it's swinging toward algo, presumably those algos could be, explained or curated by humans. So like if you told me, hey, DK, I just discovered this new algo. It's really good. It made my experience better. Plug it in. I can give it a try. And you could even maybe zap it with some lightning to endorse it.
Curate
right?
the algos.
Curate the algos, right? And you can stake your money on your taste preference there, which can be a signal to me that this is one I should be paying attention to.
I think one of the keys for all of this is, I think good curators, kind of like good influencers, and hopefully on a much larger scale, need to be able to do very well financially. Like if this ends up being, not everyone, but like if you're a truly talented tastemaker, you need to be rewarded for that, as you are in investing or potentially as, a scout in the music industry or agent. I think it's, and I think this Zaps are going to facilitate that, where if you truly have great taste people love, then this can be your full-time thing.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right. We haven't really seen, like, I think there's still this skeuomorphism of taking Zaps and using them as a replacement for likes or reactions, which I think is great. I think that's a powerful concept and will be very large. But once we get comfortable with that, once we've got Lightning wallets and value attached, like the kinds of stuff that it leads to that we haven't yet invented is probably going to be more radically different and weird and interesting. And the biggest impacts are going to be the things that don't necessarily map to our current world. So we just kind of have to do enough in our current world, enough analogies that get us there, and then we can really start to explore these new spaces that open up.
I'm stoked.
Cool. So, in that, we were talking a little bit about the relay discovery and the note that Kieran had written about relay discovery. Do you want to give a little overview of that? Kind of, I'd sort of frame it as a little bit of a middleware between relays and clients. And I don't know if you can help share.
Well, the way that I've been thinking about this a little bit is, should there be a layer above relays to facilitate discovery and kind of sorting and discovery? And so, Kieran made a post where he's like, I think that, maybe the relays are going to be more dumb or something like that. I don't remember the gist of his post exactly, but, that something should sit on top of the relays that can best take that data in and help sort it for the clients to discover. And, my best thinking on this, I was having a conversation with someone last week on my vacation, and we were talking about how that layer above it would work, and somehow there needs to be right incentives. And the right incentives are, if there's the aggregator, then that aggregator needs, like, the relays that have the information need to be willing to give that information or want to give that information to the aggregator. So that the aggregator can then take all the information and use it to run the various algos on to help with discovery of people, relays, ideas, whatever. And so I was been thinking a lot about what are the incentives between the relays and the aggregation layer. I don't know if it's gonna be one aggregator, lots of aggregators, but the best I can decide right now is, because you could imagine a world where the relays have all this data. And if they view that as an advantage, they might say, okay, we'll let you read 72 hours for free, but if you want to read, all the terabytes of data, then you have to start paying us. That's one world, because if they view the data as scarce and that's something they want to protect.
Right.
Another world, though, is they just give it all away for free. Information is free. As much, maybe you have to pay just to prove you're not a robot, but then it's free for anyone to read and write on there, or at least to read in this case. And in that world, the guy that I was talking to, his point to me was, well, the incentive for them to share with the aggregator or the aggregation layer would be if it helps them get discovered by more people as well. And so I'm not exactly sure what that incentive flow would be, but that's kind of the tension I've been thinking on.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the tension. I don't know that I have a lot more to share around the specifics of that, but I do have a lot of questions about the mechanics of, as relays and paid relays come into the forefront of a lot of thinking. I do have questions even around, as a user, how should I be thinking about using relays? And I understand, I think fiatjaf has made a comment that nobody should say my relays, you should just say some relays, right? So don't think of them as something that you have a very specific, close relationship with, half dozen or so of these, but think about ones that you choose to use, but I guess you might augment with other ones. And I think there's a relay discovery idea that JB55 has been mentioning, where it would make it easier to switch the defaults, or you kind of round robin or rotate them, or promote different relays that seem to be the right one to be using right now. And I don't understand, like, in the sense of paid relays. And actually I want to try, Kamari has built this relay called Eden that I've been meaning to try. I think that's the big one. But
it's a good name.
But how should I think about using a paid relay if I think Damus doesn't support optional, like, use this relay for writes and a separate relay for reads, if I understand right?
I'm not sure. I think it's all one for now. But.
Right, you just list them as such. But I think I heard maybe Snort or somebody else does have relays that are available. Like, I can say, use these for writing, use these for reading, and they can be like different lists of relays.
I haven't seen that, but it's a good idea.
Because if I choose like Eden as my one and only relay, that's probably not the preferred kind of style of using this, right? I'd want to find presumably 5 relays that I pay, and maybe Eden is one of them, and then I configure those as my 5. But then, do we know what are the rules around reading from those?
I have no idea.
Like, if I haven't paid Eden, can I read your notes?
Not sure.
Presumably,
I want to say, I think they might be. Some of them I thought were like, you can read free, but not write to. So because I think the core idea, at least on this first wave, I don't think they were trying to get too fancy, is just prevent spam. And so if you're just trying to prevent spam, then reading can be free. And also I believe it's a lot easier. Well, I guess, but it's computationally or bandwidth more expensive to read. Is that right?
I would guess there's a little bit more computational cost to writing.
I'm just trying to remember. Yeah. So whichever way it's more expensive for the bandwidth to read or write, maybe then that also has an effect here. But I think the primary objective is purely to prevent spam bots. And so if that's the case, then reading should be free.
Yeah. Okay. So most of the paid relays today are probably something you pay, you list it as a relay, that enables you to write to that relay.
I think so.
But then anybody who follows you can still read from that, even if they don't have a paid relationship with that relay.
Yeah, it's my best guess, but I would need to read that.
I need to actually I'm planning to do as I do when I want to learn about something. I say, let's make a tutorial video.
Cool, then I'll learn from DK. Awesome.
So I'd like to maybe later this week, I'll make a tutorial video where I set up, 5 paid relays, and I show how I I think it's basically tie your npub and then send sats, right? Send sats tied to an npub.
Yeah, it's very easy.
That's
And
the
you can even
definition.
do like, I think, maybe there's like some new variations of that. By the way, on the aggregation point, which kind of ties in this a little bit, Artur at Nostr.band is already doing this a little bit where, he has relays that sit on top of the other relays and is sucking in data from other relays. And one thing that he put out on a note was that when you subscribe to his kind of global relay, you can subscribe in different ways. So you can just subscribe the raw feed, which has everything, all the dick pics and the, Nostr coin scammers and blah, blah. You can subscribe to a subset. It's like, his relay / something.
Right.
And that is his filter version of the relay, not paid, which is interesting. And the way that I understand that he's filtering is using his trust rank, which is his algorithm, which uses various things like who's, following who and counts and stuff like that. I think it's very, very permissive at this point just to prevent the robots. Or you can do his relay / your pub key and only view events from people that your pub key is following. I think. So I think you're going to see
that's like a traditional home view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but all at the relay level. And so, you not at the client level. So
Right.
I think you're going to see a lot of this experimentation around what you're paying for, how it's filtered, and probably lots of sub views within relays.
Right. And is he also capturing the list of relays that he notices you're publishing to so that I can,
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like there should be a place I can visit, or maybe many places I can visit to try to get a better sense of like, oh, Max used to be writing to these relays and he's now writing not to that one that you used to find him on, but you can probably find him over on this one instead, right?
Yeah, I mean, we should give that feedback to Artur, but it's really nice. He has 2 new features on his site that I noticed recently that are really nice. One is he shows all the relays and he shows the number of pub keys and high quality pub keys. He lists those separately that are reading and writing. So it's 4 different bars. You can actually pull that up.
Why don't we pull that up?
It's really nice. He's been really busy. He's got a lot of good stuff on there.
All right, so we're popped over to Nostr.band, and let's hit, I know he's find new people, uncover conversation.
That one's awesome too. I was going to go to that next. We can do that first if you want.
You want to do which part?
Well, since we're already on people, the second thing I was going to talk about was this.
Oh, okay.
So this is really nice. Is he's got a people discovery thing, and of course it's a new podcast, which we need to get ours on there, and hopefully we'll have a podcast soon. But and of course, because it's the internet, it's like typically podcasts, and like then it starts to be like famous Bitcoiners, and then like whichever girls join. And anyways, but what's cool is he shows on here, you're listed on there. I think you're like top 10 or top 15 yesterday. Yeah, there you are, DK,
wow.
number 7. And what that is he shows follower change in the last 24 hours. Right. That's really nice because now you can see who's trending as like popular accounts follow. So it's not just like a static list, but it's dynamic and changes every day.
Yep. So you see like this is a relatively large follower count, but it actually increased by 153. So it's both important because it's already followed by a lot, and then it's also trending in the amount of follows that it's getting right now.
And my understanding is, again, he has this trust strength that he's using. And so for day to day, it's not necessarily the importance of your account, but it's the weighted importance of who followed you. So maybe you saw one guy got 140 followers and he was listed barely above someone that got 30 or 20 followers.
Right.
And I think the reason for that is, the 20 followers maybe includes JB55, fiatjaf, Jack, some of these like super accounts. And then some of the newer accounts maybe get weighted less.
Right.
But I think this is an incredible discovery tool already.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. So this is people discovery, and how would the mechanics of this, I'm just trying to think out loud, but if I were to copy a pub key from Nostrovia podcast, if I were to follow that account, let's say in Damus, does Damus then go out and interrogate all of the relays that I have configured to figure out if Nostrovia is publishing to those relays?
I don't think it's that sophisticated at this point, but I'm not sure.
Because I guess I'm still trying to grok the whole relay ecosystem, but how, like if I have a pub key, I still need to find the relay that they're publishing to. So how does that?
Well, let's see if he has it listed on there. I'm not sure.
So I see the following and followers, but I don't see like which relay should I go to pull down these? messages, right?
So I don't think he has it on there. That's something, Artur, if you're listening, it'd be really awesome to have that listed. I think that's going to be helpful. My best guess at this point, it's all kind of hood. And if you actually, if you go to his stats page, right, I'll show you because I wanted to get to this relay idea.
Yep.
Probably the reality is there's like 5 that matter right now.
Got it.
And so that's the answer. It's just, so if you go all the way to the bottom, he's got this new relay chart, that one. Yeah.
You want to look at the chart?
No, if you go up just a little bit. This one? Yeah. So this chart right here. So you'll see these are the relays, and you'll see that he's got these various bars. He's got it set. Oh yeah.
Should we turn some of these off? We'll turn reads and writes off.
Oh,
yeah,
you
we
can.
can.
Nice.
It just helps us get. So this is high quality reads is blue, and high quality pub key writes is red.
So as you can see, there's just a small handful of relays that matter, and then it kind of trails off over time. And so probably if you're connected to, let's say, 5 or 10, the top 5 or 10, that's where everyone is right now, basically. But you'll notice it's like Damus is number 1. Eden is already top 2.
Yep.
I wanted to say, I thought Snort was number 2, but maybe it just doesn't show it. And yeah, some of the usual suspects.
Yep.
But that would be cool. Now I can imagine Artur taking this view and mashing up with the social view, or in 2 ways. One, to show the popular social people what relays are they on, but also to show kind of like a trending relay rank, like which relays are surging and why.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about on Damus, there's in the profile view, there's a relay list. So presumably we could interrogate some service. Maybe it's just using these top 5 or so. But there's some way to figure out that Nostrovia podcast exists in this place.
Yeah.
But like as the network grows and there's a lot more relays and more diversity of relays and accounts, I think having the ability to discover the relays where the accounts I'm trying to follow are publishing, and not only where they were publishing yesterday, but where they are publishing today, you know, as these become more fluid and changing, it's an interesting kind of network topology. You know, how is this thing going to form, and what are the sort of the trade-offs that you get, and where are the services going to live that manage those and help us find those properly?
And one thing, if anyone's listening that can give us a clear answer on this, I would like to understand what if that information that Damus displays is public for anyone to display. Like, for example, how do you know which people are following which relays? Because you could also have a world where I can imagine you may have like a really popular account, and maybe they want all their followers on the popular relays, but maybe they also have, as an example, some hidden relays, or maybe it's just private paid relays for like special groups of friends or, you know, paid groups or things like that. And they may not even want people to know it's there. So I'm curious if that's possible to do it anonymously, or if they'll just have to have it kind of paywalled or whitelisted or whatever.
Yeah. Was there anything else on the stats pages you wanted to look through?
Oh, I mean, no, I guess the only other thing is if you want to go to the top and maybe just...
Let me get back to screen share here. So
yeah, I think it's nice just to see the total users.
So this is the red is daily pub key writing events. That's active. And then blue is we call it high quality, meaning they have like a profile pic uploaded, right? So
looks something in their bio.
Something in their bio. Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of surged and then went down a little bit. But if you actually go down to the next chart, I think this is interesting. Like the total, one more down. Yeah, this guy, total users. We just are crossing 500,000 as we speak. 500,000 high quality pub keys.
I see. Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, nice. And do we have any sense of, is there something about, daily events published? Can we see daily events published by unique quality pub keys? Does that exist here?
Well, yeah, this is a little messy chart. I don't know.
Posts, profile updates, reposts, total events published. Kind of want to see posts by high quality pub keys.
That might have been the first chart. Total zaps. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I know. This just got added. So Zaps is, I guess, is that a reaction of kind 9735?
Yeah,
we've got Zaps, and there's only like a few, maybe 100 or so a day or fewer, because it's like not a broadly launched feature. But I think when that happens, there's a total of 357 Zaps sent. So if you get
2 or 3 last night. So.
Yeah, so get in if you want to be in the first 1,000 Zaps. There's still time. That'll be seriously. You fast forward 10 years. That's going to be like an OG mark. Be like, look, I sent one of the first 1,000 Zaps.
Let's go. Let's go.
Represent. So anything else on the stats
No,
we should be taking?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting to see us cross that user mark. I do think, maybe usage spiked a little bit, fell down a little bit, and I do think that maybe that's, to your point, just because people need to find interesting. Like if you need to have a magic moment of engaging with interesting people, and if you don't, you probably churn temporarily.
Yep. Cool. Should we move on to Umbrel?
Let's do it.
Okay, so you're an investor in Umbrel, right?
Personally, prior to the fund.
Personally, okay.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of these guys.
And one of the things I think I have not set one up yet, but my understanding, which I think has been clarified recently, is that Umbrel is the software service, but is not a piece of hardware, a hardware package. So they kind of have a prescribed Raspberry Pi, kind of a suggested maybe.
So it's changed a little bit over time, and I'll just caveat all this by saying that I have an Umbrel running on a Raspberry, and I'll describe that. But I was trying to test it on here. I actually haven't used it in a while because I've been so busy, and I was having trouble getting back on there. So I haven't tested the Nostr feature yet, but hopefully in the next week or so I can re-get it up and running. Once you get it up and running, it's easy. But so Umbrel is open source software, and it's an open source operating system. And so within that operating system, you can run all kinds of apps, and their kind of view, it's a beautiful, very big vision, but in the same way that Apple Computer said, hey, the personal computer, we can go from the mainframe computer to a personal computer that fits on your desk or in your lap. Their vision is we can go from the mainframe big server and to one that sits in your house and make it mainstream. And so it's a beautiful vision that's very aligned with Bitcoin, very aligned with Lightning, very aligned with Nostr. And so it's open source software that you can run. Most people are running on a Raspberry when they released. That was the kind of official place. And, they kind of list links on Amazon to buy all the equipment. The whole thing all ends like less than $200. It's pretty reasonably inexpensive. They then released the Umbrel machine, which is a pre-built kind of Raspberry that you can just order and plug in if you want to do it even easier.
That's what I was of the mind that it was something you buy from them, but that was like just a moment in time.
That was a moment in time, and then they had a lot of trouble with that because of supply chain issues manufacturing in China.
Right.
So I don't know if they brought that back yet. What they've done since, though, is they've made it easier to run on various, Linux environments. So if you want to run it, you can run it on your own, web instance. You can run it on a computer.
Right.
I think I haven't played around with the X. This will take some time, but I think you have to have like a virtual machine on your Mac that runs Linux to run it.
Got it. And yeah, like my Mac is a laptop, so probably because I'm closing it and opening it when I go places, this isn't the ideal environment. So the good news is I have on order now, I have a special order with a Raspberry Pi, and I got it because I wanted to run my own relay.
Let's go.
So this Umbrel announcement, so I'm actually going to flip back to the screen share. So this Umbrel announcement is that now you can, if you have Umbrel installed, so you have a Raspberry Pi and the whole kind of, kind of suggested thing, you can actually back up all your activity. We're going to play the music. What's happening here? These are all the actions you're taking. You can run everything from your Damus client to demoing. You add a relay from your own Umbrel, and then as you start writing your message, you're taking follow actions that they show up in this actions list. So I thought that was a super cool. I mean, that I've always been, I'd say, Umbrel curious, but never pulled the trigger. Just, a lot of priorities in life. And here I am now, Nostr's making me make the move. So
I love it. And then I imagine, and this is the beauty of all the network effects, once you have it, why not run a Bitcoin and a Lightning node?
Yep, exactly. So I'm sure that is, step 2 and 3 in my future once I get my Nostr relay set up. Cool. So Umbrel launching the personal relay. Oh yeah. So let's see what else we got. We got China bans Damus. Do you want to set that one up a little bit?
Well, I honestly don't know much to say other than, after Damus got released in the App Store, the global feed turned like all Chinese. Turns out there's a lot of people in China. And, JB55 made I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or he's serious, but whatever, the bold claim, someone's like, what's your goal for this thing coming out in China? He was like, collapse the CCP in a year. And it's like, all right, good, that's a bold claim. And, so in theory, this should be censorship resistant, easy for people to use there. Although I suppose there are ways of cutting off different clients like Snort. But they banned the app, and yeah, I mean, that's about all I know. But I'm not surprised they banned the app.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed at the pace, at the pace of banning, right? So it was, I think, was it 3 days live or 2 days live in the App Store when the banning happened? So,
But honestly, I was surprised the other direction. I'm
really?
surprised it didn't get banned in like an hour.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's also kind of telling of an overall maybe meta point around Damus and iOS and in the App Store, which I think is kind of a healthy thing, but maybe not what people assume. So Damus, is an iOS app, native iOS built, so it's not going to be like, just some web client. It's actually, iOS code. I assume they built it in Swift or Objective-C or something. And so that means they're sort of hosted in Apple's environment. They're not going to, you sort of have to say, I'm going to be a good guest in Apple's house. And so when China government said to Apple, like, you can't serve this app anymore. So of course, JB55 was just like informed of Apple's decision to take it down, which may have been China's decision to pressure Apple to take it down. But then also, I think on the other side of that is, and I forget if I saw, was it JB55 posted something about this, but you could imagine Damus being a paid app that it doesn't need to be super cypherpunk. If you're living in this in Apple's house, you kind of want to play by the rules that they've established. And so maybe the future of Damus is it's a paid app and you use Apple, the in-app payments to pay whatever you pay, $10 a month to Damus, and then they, on your behalf, are helping proxy and manage all of your relationships with relays and the money that you need to send to relays. But they kind of obscure that by just like a simple Apple in-app payment purchase of, whether it's the basic features or sort of some premium features, which I think is actually nice because it means Damus then becomes aligned with Apple's success, and Apple makes more money the more people who use Damus, which is actually a really nice thing for the whole ecosystem to have a premium client experience that's built on, one of the largest, kind of device and OS manufacturers, and being aligned with the incentive model that they have to push more apps that have a paid subscription associated with them. So I think it's nice to be more collaborative in that sense instead of trying to be like super, cypherpunk ideals when, recognize that you're living inside Apple's house and try to be a good guest.
Well, 2 thoughts on that. First, I don't think that would have solved the China issue though, right?
No.
I think the China issue is about also just like you can access information freely and blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, I mean, I think short term that could make sense, and it's better to kind of Trojan horse people. But honestly, I think the reality is, even though Apple is very powerful, like, or whatever, if everyone gets a taste of how beautiful open is, and they get a taste of how beautiful the Lightning Network is for global free instant payments, I think they're going to want that directly and not through a credit card. I mean, the credit card's fine for the first year or something to get people, over the hump. But then once they've gotten that taste, if Apple tries to ban it, honestly, I think it could be the collapse of the App Store, just like JB's comment with, China. Because there are ways around it, right? There's going to be, responsive web apps. There's going to be an Android. You can always sideload it. And I know like most people are not going to do the weird cypherpunk thing. Maybe this is an opportunity for a new hardware company and app store to emerge. We've talked about maybe it's Umbrel. But I do think that playing nice is good to give people that first taste.
Yeah.
But I think that people want the experience directly when they realize it's global, it's instant, it's interoperable. And honestly, I could see this being the downfall of a company like Apple if they try and play too hard the other direction in the future. I know that sounds crazy, but like, I mean, I'm obviously very bullish on open free Lightning payments. I think it's magic.
Yeah, technology can change fast in surprising ways.
Yeah.
I mean, and I probably have. My view is, I'd say not one that I hear from people a lot, but I would say I like to see products that are very focused on UX, even if you compromise some of the fundamental ideals, because it helps lots of people get a taste, kind of what you're saying.
Totally.
And if people get a taste and see what that alternative looks like and they really fall in love with it and then they start demanding it, maybe they'll jump through a few of those hoops later.
Totally. But to be clear, I do think, the Lightning payments put the censorship resistance aside for a second,
Yeah.
I think it's just a way better UX.
Yeah.
Right? When you can say, wait a second, I just made a payment of less than a penny to some dude in Africa or in Asia or like wherever instantly. That's like just pure user experience. better,
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
So,
And we're not here yet, but did we talk about the kind of the TikTokification kind of celebrity prize money idea?
I don't know. Tell me this.
So like another one in kind of while I'm going around purple pilling, Silicon Valley as best I can. People say censorship resistant. Do we really need that? Is that going to attract a mainstream user? And I think it's a reasonable question. I think we do need it, but I don't think it's necessarily going to attract a mainstream user. So the things I think are going to attract mainstream users are, one of the things we talked about up at the front was the product innovation that we're going to see.
Totally.
I think another thing that's going to attract mainstream user is, and we're not there today. It's not a good pitch for a mainstream user today. But I think the fact that Zaps tie value to information means we both have higher quality information, but we also have effectively like a slot machine for content creation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that everybody who shows up is going to get paid, but somebody is going to show up and they're going to create something amazing. They're going to create something that just, it resonates, it's funny, it's beautiful, something about it works, and that gets spread very quickly. And Zaps hit that, and you're going to find somebody who comes up with something amazing. They make $100,000 equivalent right through Zaps, and that kind of thing. When you say, look, it's not just go on TikTok and get 10 million views on your video. It's you show up here, create something amazing, and the whole world assembles, and you get paid that day, that moment, when your thing gets discovered. I think when you start to see a few of those examples out there, then people are going to be like, I think I can do that. I want to play. I want to see if my stuff can be seen in the same way. And I think people will try and try again because the outcomes can be really meaningful. And I think it just means it assembles creativity to compete, to get out into the world in new ways. And because value is tied closely to that, I think that's going to, it's a future thing, but I think that type of thing would draw in a lot of more mainstream users who don't necessarily care about the censorship resistance aspect of it, at least not initially, but they care about the ability for their creativity to have a platform or a protocol, really, but to have a place where it can be discovered and where they can like immediately capture value for the success of their creative projects.
Totally. I think something that's also going to happen here that's going to be really interesting is that, and remember, all these different ideas we're talking about, the beauty of all of these systems is that because they're open, it's network effects that build.
Totally.
One little one leads to a little bit more, leads to a little bit more, and then it becomes
compounding
better.
all over.
N+1 users is better for everybody.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you get the whole world, right? And that's why I think it's going to happen so fast. But what I think is also going to happen is savvy content creators that are either frustrated with the current system and or are entrepreneurs and want to like betting on themselves are going to love this system. Now, maybe we're not quite there with critical mass yet, but the rate we're growing, maybe we'll be there next month, right? Where imagine you're someone like a Joe Rogan, and you've got the listeners, and your relative importance and position in the culture has gone down since going exclusive with Spotify. That's like demonstrable. I listen to him way less now that he's not on Apple Podcasts. I know a lot of people are the same, right? Just didn't want to go to fucking Spotify and do that. And I don't think he wanted to do that, to be clear. I think from everything you hear from a guy like Rogan, he seems to be into open. He's got, Adam Curry talking about value for value on his show, et cetera. So I think all else equal, he would prefer open to not. At the same time, the dude's an entrepreneur, right? He's gone out there, he's, put his skin in the game, he's interacted with the market directly. He knows that he can probably earn a lot more if there are a way to go direct to the fans. Now, he's also made a lot of money, so it's not like he needs, whatever to pay his rent. Like that's all taken care of. So imagine someone like him seeing all of this, being frustrated with losing importance, going to Spotify, realizing, you kind of made a deal with the devil and it sucked. And now you could say, you know what, fuck all that. I can just go direct to fans, have them pay me directly, released completely peer-to-peer, and I bet he could do more than his $100 million if you have enough people that are paying. And one model that I think is going to work, in addition to the tipping and better value, all of that's great. I had a conversation, I don't know if he wants me to tell who it is, but with a prominent Bitcoin thinker who writes about value for value that I like a lot. And he made a really good point to me, which is that, people, whatever, I'll just say it because his article is awesome. Gigi, he put out an excellent article talking about value for value. And he talks about you can copy a piece of information you can in Apple, therefore market price is formed for apples, not for information. If you haven't read his value for value piece, it's fantastic. And so, he's big on value for value because the tipping or the busking model, and what I'm interested in is the information model around that, is one way to monetize in this world where information itself wants to be free. That's awesome. That's going to live. It's going to work. It's going to be great. But he made a point to me that I've been thinking about, which is there is one way you can charge for information, though, and differently in an online world. And you can charge for information to get it first. Okay. So something that some artists have done successfully, for example, I think Tom York did this when he released Tomorrow's Modern Box as an album. I paid for that. One, because I want to support Tom York and I'm a fan, but two, because he said, if I recall correctly, he released it on all the major platforms, but he released it as a torrent that you could pay for first.
Yep.
And he knew the information was going to get free, probably within an hour or 2 hours or a day, it was going to be torrentable everywhere. Anyone can get it. Like, information will be free. But, in the same way that high frequency traders and hedge funds will pay tremendous amounts for getting a little edge on getting information first so they can make better trades.
Yep.
Same thing's going to happen here. So imagine if someone like a Joe Rogan comes and says, fine, I'll publish on all of this shit for free and with ads, whatever, but I'm going to publish a day earlier for all of my Nostr, whatever clients. And you do have to do a paywall there.
Right.
And that's the way you just get, or you connect to my paid relay, and that's the way you get it. If you want it a day early, you just have to pay. And if you don't, fine, you'll get it tomorrow. I saw this already happening this week. I don't know if you saw this, but Lynn Alden, she put out, a great new banger of a piece. I haven't read all of it yet, but it looks great. All of her stuff is great. And it's about the Federal Reserve and all the, fuckery they're up to and blah, blah, blah. And she released it a day early on Nostr. So all of her Nostr followers got it early.
Right.
And then if you're on Twitter, you have to wait till tomorrow.
Yep.
I think you're going to see that more and more with paywalls.
Yeah. So the concept of kind of windowing content, right,
Yes.
where you have it exposed in a certain place, you aggregate more audience interest there. I mean, the movie industry used to do this, right, where you'd first get it in the theater and you'd maybe buy it later on whatever people, Blu-ray or DVD, and streaming rights kind of come about later. So I think that model for content definitely makes sense. But of course, with Lightning payments, you have all kinds of new surface area to explore, the different incentives and different ways that you might want to window content and share it kind of early to different audiences and capture value in that process.
But I just think about, if I'm a real entrepreneur, why would I not go this route? I mean, I don't know for a fact this is what he's doing, and I'm not making any claims about his content, but if you saw Pomp earlier this year pulled all of his advertising from his show, because I think there was the joke with him and some of the other big ones like What Bitcoin did, that every sponsor they had rug pulled users, like everyone.
Right.
And so, but he's built a big audience, and clearly as an entrepreneur and a hustler, like, why would he not want to use this system and just say, go direct to fans, early releases, tips, whatever it is? Like, I bet he could make more money that way.
Right. Well, I mean, in the long run, I think that's true. I think if you go to a Pomp today and you say, come on, Nostr, and pitch your stuff, my guess is there's not enough of his audience assembled here yet. So, like, when's the crossover?
Well, and that's what I'm saying is all network effects. Like, maybe it's next month, but what it's going to take is, I think there's going to be many things. All the stuff you were talking about, it's going to bring more people in on the kind of the random lottery. And, the more users you get, we're at 500,000. When we get to 5 million, is that enough? Maybe for him, 500,000 is enough, because a lot, like the 500,000 are
it's a big overlap.
Bitcoiners, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're probably going to need someone like him or a Rogan to also just take a principled stand and just be like, look, I made a ton of money. I am making a long-term bet on this, and I just believe in the principles. I'm going to be the first. Like, someone's going to move first. Like, not everyone's going to do it eventually, but they'll bring a huge wave with them. And then the second person will say, well, actually, if Rogan can do it, I can do it too.
Right.
And then with every new super influencer you get, then it's another super network effect forming.
Right. And do you think that those, I know we talked a little bit about some of the apps like Fountain, which has, I think, some of its own clips and discovery stuff.
Yeah.
Is that part of, how does that thing fit into all the rest of the stuff? Because it's built as a value for value thing, but it's built initially agnostic, or kind of before Nostr was really a thing. And so how, like, would, if you were kind of sitting across, to advise, let's say, Rogan or Pomp, would you tell them go publish your podcast through, the Pod Index or through Fountain, or like what are the specific recommendations? Like, let's say, when it's 500,000 users and it's relevant enough to Pomp, what should he do?
Well, so two answers there. One, he's already publishing on the podcast index and already working with the Fountain team. So I don't
Okay,
know this
great.
for a fact, but I think even pre-Nostr, I think his plan was to go all in on value for value
Mhm.
with apps like Fountain. So I think he's already there, actually.
Got it.
But, you know, one thing that's also going to happen soon, and I think we'll have Oscar on here hopefully in a couple of weeks once he's got more to say on this, is, you know, some of these apps like Fountain for sure, maybe some of the other podcasting apps that Albie's working with, maybe Breeze, you know, I think there will be a standard for them to integrate with Nostr so that your identity is a pub key, the commenting system are notes on Nostr. And so, you know, maybe the hosting is still outside of Nostr, which is fine. But, and that's, you know, the RSS feed itself there. But that it's all going to integrate, at least in the comments and payments, with Nostr and Lightning. And so I think we'll see that in the next month, to be honest, at the rate this is all going. Maybe, certainly the next quarter, but definitely the next month. And so, yeah, my advice would be, you know, my advice would be, I don't know exactly what to do, but experiment. You bet on yourself. Someone like Pomp, you know, he talks about betting on himself. Great.
Yep.
Go out there. You want to build your own audience, own that relationship. Experiment with different monetization models. Try the early release and the paywall. Try no paywall and no early release and just the tips. Try whatever it is that you, you know, you're an entrepreneur, right? You're a hustler. Go out there and figure out what's the right model. But you have this new set of tools, and you know that if you do believe in yourself, over call it a 1, 2, 3 year time horizon, you know you're going to have more potential for monetization if the relationship is direct and no one's taking a cut.
Right. And I think maybe Substack is a early example of that working already at big enough scale. It's not on the kind of micro payment-y world. It's more just in kind of a traditional subscription, but it's an example of people who, you know, I think people run Substacks without huge audiences and make kind of full-time living for themselves off of, you know, I think was it Kevin Kelly had his, was it 1,000 True Fans?
One of the greatest essays ever. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. So I think if you've got those 1,000 True Fans in a direct relationship and they're willing to pay you monthly, like that can often be a living, you know?
You know, that to me, I remember I read that essay almost a decade ago. And I think the gist of the essay is, 1,000 people that buy all of your stuff is enough that you can earn a comfortable, you know, middle-class wage to live here in America, and you don't need another job. And if you want to live somewhere else, probably even better lifestyle. And so...
Got your eye on Mexico City, I take it.
Siempre. And so, but that whole idea, I think he was right then, but he's going to be 1,000 times more right in a world with peer-to-peer payments.
Right.
And I just think it's beautiful because, again, going back full circle to our original conversation, in a world where that's possible, where people don't need jobs and they can be the owner of their own creative energy and experiment with stuff, you're just going to have more cool stuff out there. Like, you're just going to have more long tail. And I fundamentally believe long tail is better for the world.
Right. Do you have a hypothesis on how creators, so there's a lot of people who I think are talented at creating in different, different media formats, but that maybe don't have a big platform yet. And so, I've heard some people talk about this concept of creators as an asset class. And could you sort of help nurture a bunch of upcoming creators, you know, help cross promote their audiences to each other, maybe help manage monetization across them to sort of uplift everybody together instead of, I think like Mr. Beast is famous for having said that he had like his 5 mastermind, people that he fell into, and 4 of them were college dropouts, and one of them, or 4 of them never went to college. One of them dropped out to be part of this mastermind, something like that. But they were just like hardcore on it every day, 12 hours a day, sharing all their tips and tricks. And is there any way to help those things? I mean, obviously that just kind of happened organically, but could you help those kinds of things assemble so that these creators can, this new wave of creators that you're proposing can get, whether it's the financing or the distribution and audiences, or kind of how an up-and-comer could sort of assemble that stuff, through that collaboration? Well,
I think, building an audience is a great question. And I think it's tied in with some of this financial stuff, but I also think it's kind of separate. Like, I think, all the Web3 creator stuff, which was all scammy and obviously didn't really work. But I do think that they kind of confused a little bit of like, we're revolutionizing peer-to-peer finance. It's going to help creators grow big. Well, yeah, it's going to help with peer-to-peer payments, but the peer-to-peer payments or whatever don't work if you don't have the audience. So in terms of how to grow the audience, I still think it's somewhat of a separate question. I like this idea maybe of like more guilds forming or whatever, but that almost seems like a separate thing. One thing that is interesting, one trend, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but there's one arbitrage happening in the world right now that very few people are aware of for podcasters. And that is that as a podcaster, you can do this pay to listen thing on Fountain. Again, I'm not sure this is a good thing long term, because I personally don't like any kind of ads of any sort in my feed. But instead of paying for an ad, which if you think about the advertising model, it's very broken. It's like you pay for an impression and then a click, and then you don't know if people actually interact with your actual content at all, which you don't care about. You want them to listen to your podcast. What Fountain does is you can pay, but you only pay, a tiny amount as they listen to the podcast. They're doing the actual action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've heard anecdotally from some podcasters is, they pre all this boom had an audience of about 12,000 users. So, sizable, but not that big yet, but growing. And I bet it's going to grow a lot with this whole Nostr thing. But at least among Bitcoin and Lightning podcasts, there was this window where you could go kind of like early days on Google or something and play this huge arbitrage where you could do like $100 ad placement or listen placement and grow your audience from like, 500 to 5,000 users. And I know that I don't know if that window is still open, but for a while, there will be, kind of weird arbitrage opportunities like that savvy content creators can use to build that core.
Yeah. It seems like whenever there's sort of a new ecosystem forming, there's, opportunity all over the place. You just got to figure out where to prioritize your time and what fits with the kind of creative work that you want to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. We talked a little bit. We touched on Nostr bounties a little bit. Do you want to address that? I can pull up. We've got,
pull it up.
Let me see here. Okay. So this is the bouncer.org, which I think, is this from NVK?
Yeah, it's from
okay.
NVK.
So the CoinKite crew. And this is an example of like a bounties site, bounty specific site. Some of the top bounties here are like a web relay browser. So like touches on some of the stuff we were saying. How do you figure out which relays to use? So 5 million sats for that, 5 million sats for a file sharing app, 5 million for a bounties manager. So these are all kind of some examples of the types of things I could imagine. Like, is it Rigendel's, like his micro app could live in a bounty here?
He should post a bounty. And if you go to the very bottom, there's the biggest one so far was Jack's bounty, which he did for a Nostr-based GitHub replacement, which is 1.2 BTC.
Oh, there it is. Look at that. So, like, could there be a Nostr-based GitHub replacement? And it says we'll pay 120 million sats at least.
Let's go.
For the best Nostr-based GitHub replacement. Best is determined by this community.
And there's also, if you go back to the one before it, you'll see the first bounty has already been claimed, which was a relay-based social Nostr app design. So basically the idea behind this bounty was, a client that shows for various notes, not just who posted it, but the relays that was posted to.
And so how do you use that? Are you viewing it through an existing client, or it's its own client that lets you?
I think it's its own client. But you see, and it's nice, you can see the pledges, like fiatjaf put up 0.05 BTC, and NVK put up 0.01.
Right. And I think that's, my understanding is one of the Nostr bounties is to try to have a system where people can make more pledges and almost like crowdfund bounties and kind of put their name or value behind something that they want to see in the world.
And what's beautiful, you can already see there, and the claimed, got split 30%, 30%, 30%, 10% to different people.
Right.
And so kind of like in the value for value splits where, you can basically say for any show that people stream sats, send 40% to the host, 40% to the other host, 10% to the producer, 10% to Fountain, or whatever it is. Fountain's less than that. But you can almost see how all of this is going to happen where, it's so cool. You're going to see someone's going to post a bounty. Other people are going to match the bounty. The bounty is going to get paid out proportionally depending on how the team wants it paid out. And maybe it'll even be like an escrow service to make sure that the bounty is protected. I also thought on that specific bounty that you were talking about, it was cool because I think it's fiatjaf. He, has been doing all of his other bounties listed on Stacker News, which has its own bounty feature.
Let's pull that one up.
And he's basically asking for this user interface based on the Stacker News bounty feature. So
this is kind of, I pulled up Stacker News. We're looking at recent and we're filtered by bounties instead of posts. So this is exactly that. I'm just going to do a refresh to make sure we got the latest here. But what's nice about how bounties work on Stacker News, you can actually, you have to hover over to see the size of the thing, but you can see this one was 10K sats paid. This is a 120K sats bounty. But within each bounty posting, of course, because it's Stacker News, you have like the whole comment thread and the discussion. I guess it's very memey.
Well, this is for the best meme.
Oh, this is the best meme. Okay, it's a bounty for the best meme. I wasn't really reading. I'm just clicking around. Otter for private messenger app.
Like a signal based on Otter.
Yeah. Which actually, did you see the one that fiatjaf shared a Mac client? Let me pop up. I think I have it in one of these. This one. So this is a Nostr DM client for Mac OS.
Cool.
That fiatjaf shared. It looks, super pro, really nicely done. Have they solved all of the DM? Does somebody have a solution for the DM stuff? Because I think we had some questions on how DM stuff should work to, obviously in a proper DM system, you'd want your metadata to be private in the same way that the message content is. But
yeah, I anyone listening, if you have good resources to point us to there, let us know. But
yeah.
Also, just a shout to the audience while we're on this, because you mentioned that as a Mac OS app, I am currently looking for a Mac OS app to interact with Nostr. Damus, I think, only works if you have the new Apple chips. I haven't found a good one yet, so if someone has a good Mac OS app for Nostr, please let us know.
Yeah, hit us in the comments. Obviously, so the features of it you want are that it's a native Mac OS client, and the Damus one there's no Mac OS native for Damus. I guess the one I'm using is just using the iOS code. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know people have been using Damus on their Mac natively, but it only works on the Intel ones for whatever reason.
On the Intel?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. On the Apple, the ARM chips.
Oh, okay.
So I have Intel.
Because my understanding was that, and that this may not be correct, but I had written something about how Damus is an iOS app, and somebody corrected me and said Damus is an iOS and Mac OS app. And so
I think that's right.
I don't know if it was built for a native kind of for Mac independent of chips, because the M1, the main thing that you get with an Apple Silicon is you don't need it to be built for Mac, and you can use an iOS app that's not built for Mac.
Got it.
With a Mac.
So that's probably what it is then.
But it may be that the code was actually compiled to be built. Like there might be a binary that shipped to the App Store on the Mac App Store.
Huh.
I thought that was the case. So
I thought so too. Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this question. Please let us know. But I would love to use Damus on there. Just still using old Intel.
Well, that's a mark of a true Bitcoiner, as I learned.
Oh,
did you see this?
It's like because I want to stack more sats.
Yeah,
or something.
stack more sats instead of buying a M1.
Yeah.
Cool. And then so I think the last thing we have here is the spicy bit.
Oh.
So there's this, this kind of Ordinals, Inscriptions.
Here we go.
And a new kind of project that tries to add AI and Nostr to that whole mess. So do you want to set it up a little bit?
So
how Ordinals work?
Let me just start by saying I'm not making a claim one way or the others on Ordinals or NFTs on Bitcoin. My view on all of this stuff, I think I mentioned in the last podcast, is I support the free markets. And if people want to do it, great. If they're paying the fees, great. I personally am not that into NFTs, but some people are, and so great. Anyways, but I get it's a political issue, whatever, and people can have their own opinions. At the end of the day, TikTok, next block. So the way, but I do think there's something really cool worth mentioning, which is the way that Nostr is integrating with some of these projects. So Danny over at DZ, that guy is just super prolific. He's been innovating on Bitcoin, on Lightning for a long time. I think, he had the number 2 node already as listed by Lightning Labs and DZ and just all kinds of cool stuff he's doing. Well, he had been playing with Nostr, and then he looked into Ordinals and decided, and also was getting super into AI, very prolific guy, and decided to put all of them together. So he created a site called Astral Babes, and these are some pretty racy, NFTs. And so taking a step back, this guy Casey Rotermore, who I'm a big fan of, he's put out all kinds of interesting ideas over the years around. What became the basis for Chaumy and Ments, which now things like Fediment and Fedi are pushing. He had great ideas around using the Lightning Network to cross over between different chains, like really interesting push the envelope type ideas. He came up with this idea of ordinal theory, or he would say discovered it. And the idea is that ordinals are, when you look at the way when a block gets mined in Bitcoin, you can actually order the number of Satoshis in that block. So you could say this Satoshi was the first ordinal or the first Satoshi in a specific block. This was the second Satoshi, whatever. And so his original thinking, and again, I'm not an expert. This is my understanding.
Yeah.
His original thinking was that there would be different market prices for different Satoshis, because some people may attribute value to the rarity of a certain Satoshi. And so if it was the first, Satoshi mined in 2011, maybe that's like got a higher premium than something else. Or if it's a Satoshi that came from one of the Satoshi mine blocks or one of the Halfini mine blocks, that might have some special value. You may agree or disagree with that, but that was his thinking. And at least so far, it seems like some people agree. Then he came up with the idea of inscriptions. And I'm not sure exactly how this works, but you can basically take a specific ordinal, specific Satoshi, attach some data to it, and turn it into an NFT. And so that's the idea about ordinals and inscriptions. Danny, meanwhile, was playing with, I don't know if it was Midjourney or DALL-E, but these various AI engines, getting super into like AI art. He was also playing a lot with Nostr. And I think he even had at one point, it's like kind of like a liquidity marketplace for Lightning Network that he was playing with on Nostr. Well, he decided to merge all of these ideas. So he came up with this Astral Babes concept and basically got, I think, Midjourney to create like, let's say some like racy, well-endowed Astral Babes. And I think there's like 420 of these. And you could mint these or inscribe them on specific Satoshis. But then what he did that was novel, and the reason I wanted to discuss it on this show is he created an open source wallet called Nosoft. And with Nosoft, you log in with a NIP7 browser extension, so Albi obviously being a very popular one. You go to Nosoft, you log in with Albi, and now you use your Nostr key to log in. And this, by the way, I think is going to get really huge, is using Nostr, your Nostr public key is your identity and private key is your login. I think that's going to be huge around the web. Luke Childs from Umbrel is pushing this as well. I think it's going to be really, really big. But so anyway, so you use your pub key, that's your identity, to log into this wallet. Now, once you're in this wallet, you paid to inscribe one of these 420 Astral Babes to a specific Satoshi, and that Satoshi gets shipped to your Nostr wallet, the Nosoft wallet. Now, the really kind of mind-blowing thing for me, and I'm not sure that all this is good or bad, but like I didn't even realize this was possible, was that because Nostr uses the same elliptic curve as Bitcoin to create public-private key pairs, like I think fiatjaf literally used the same curve, then technically your Nostr key can be a Bitcoin key as well, right? And so he's basically issuing the Satoshi to your Nostr pub key as if it were a Bitcoin key. And what's interesting there is that, users may not understand what's happening here in the background, but all they know is click in, log in with Nostr. I don't even know what Bitcoin is. All of a sudden, I'm given this NFT, which is inscribed on a real Satoshi, to my Nostr pub key, which is also a Bitcoin pub key. And then if for whatever reason that, went up in value or whatever later on, you could always move it to another wallet. But that just blew my mind. I didn't even know that was possible. And again, no normative claims on this is good or bad, but like the fact that it's possible is wild.
Yeah. And the basics are, if I could summarize, it's that a Nostr key is also a Bitcoin key.
That's right.
And so if you come for the Nostr key and you have a key pair, people can send you Bitcoin to that thing, which you may not have even intended when you set it up, but you might become more curious about it if you...
Now, to be clear, I think I would not recommend users do that, right? Like there's a reason that the standard, or it's sort of evolving. So you have your Nostr identity, pub key or private key, and then you have your Lightning address to receive Lightning payments separately. I think a big part of the reason here is that there's a certain amount of risk taking you might take with your Nostr keys that you would not with a Bitcoin UTXO.
Right.
And so I think that, I'm not saying this is a good idea even, it might be a terrible idea. But it's interesting that it's possible. Yeah.
I mean, I always like the ability. I mean, the whole idea here is we love the permissionlessness of everything. And so I'm always a fan of people pushing the boundary to understand what can be done.
Yes.
I can also recognize the problem that comes about. I mean, Bitcoin is designed to be money, and if money should be fungible, and if you have money that's somewhat not always as fungible as the other parts of the money, that can be a problem, for especially when trying to, have censorship resistance. You'd prefer more fungibility. So like, I think it's easy to recognize both sides of this, and I don't think I've fully prosecuted an opinion on kind of how this should evolve. But I do like permissionless innovation, but I also really look forward to Bitcoin being fungible, and the non-fungibility can be concerning. So,
but I mean, my take on all that is just like, look, you can't wish something away. If it's possible and people are going to do it, they're going to do it. So if that's an attack vector, it's an attack vector, and we need to figure out a solution and not just like complain about it. Like, if we want this to be money and it's a danger, then we need to solve the problem, not not wish it weren't there. So
cool. So we've got we've got a couple hours done, maybe. So maybe we're
about 50% through. So
why don't we get to a wrapping point for today? But I think a few things kind of in my mind that I think we should be talking about soon. There was a post on Stacker News that was kind of I forget how they called it, but it was something of like a little bit of like a Nostr detractor or hater. And one of the things that I always like to do, and I've been proposing this framework a lot recently, is anytime you're excited about something, you should also be able to steelman the negative case.
Sure.
And so I think this one did a pretty good job of pointing out some of the flaws or concerns. And I think it'd be good to go through and try to really say like, hey, we believe this. We don't think this one's that important. We think there are solutions to that, but kind of go through, because I think we sort of always have, a lot of excitement about what's going on. And there was nothing that I read there that makes me think, oh, this is just, a dead end. But there's definitely lots of problems that are not solved yet. And so, instead, I don't think anybody would make a claim that Nostr is solved or it's the solution. I think it's an interesting enough beginning, and there's enough momentum and activity around it that I think it has the potential to be a really big, important thing. But I think it's also good to weigh what are both sides of that so that we can go in clear-eyed. We can know what the biggest problems are, and like we can start telling the stories, finding the people, making sure that people who are excited about its future can help contribute to making the whole thing, work and solve the problems that the kind of haters or the negativity would be pointing out.
I love it. I'm all for seeing reality as it is. So, one last thing on my end, this is very small, but the last 2 times I was on here, I was wearing cool shirts from Lightning Store, from Sam, that are dope. And today I just want to give a shout out. He may even be listening, to my dad, Queb. He makes some really cool art. This is one of his interesting designs. I hear there may be a Nostr one in the works, but I just wanted to show off. This is an octopus playing what appears to be a guitar and or sitar, kind of trippy.
Very nice.
Show off some of his cool art. Maybe maybe we'll have a Nostr one soon.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming again.
Thanks
I'm glad
for
we got
setting
a
all
chance
this
to. I'm glad we got a chance to hang and chat Nostr, and of course we'll be doing some more. I got some of those tutorial videos are coming out later this week. I've got one of those purple pill one of my big tech friends I'm purple pilling in a video that's going to publish this week.
Love it.
So lot more Nostr stuff coming up, and I guess we should get that podcast started officially at some point
Love
too.
it. Yeah, no, shout out to you, DK. You've done this, man. When I talk about prolific, DK has published more content, helped more newbies get into the scene. Giving away sats, making videos. Like, dude, you're on fucking fire. Like, props.
It's fun. It's fun for me, and I just love kind of being a part of it and helping in whatever way I can. So,
Word.
Cool.
All
All right,
guys. See y'all next time.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye.